it happens that way. Hi, my name is Douglas C. Welch from welchwright.com. If you want to know more about me, then you probably really care to know. But you can find me over there, also on Twitter at Douglas Welch. This is the fine art of troubleshooting anything. And the fact is, over the 25 years I've been working with technology, I have developed a series of rules, organically, hadn't really thought about it, that not only apply to troubleshooting technology, but more and more as I go through my life are ways of troubleshooting my life. I think it comes, the first couple of the rules come from my upbringing in a small farm town in Ohio at the knee of my mechanic father, who worked on everything from lawnmower engines to large excavating machines, and often took me around with him out to the various farms in the area working on huge combines. I have actually been shoved inside of a combine to hold bolts when I was younger. Wouldn't fit anymore. But one of the things, well, first of all, the first rule is, let me see if I have to look at it. Primum non nocere. Okay, anyone speak Latin or understand my bad Latin?
First non. First don't panic.
Close. Primum non nocere or nocere.
Oh, don't do any damage first.
First, do no harm. If you want, sit down. If you want a long and fruitful career, a long and fruitful life, first, do no harm. If you're troubleshooting anything, never leave yourself or someone else any worse off than where you left them. And I practice this with my computer consulting clients. If they're already having trouble, but the computer is still basically working, I will do everything I can to keep it working at least that level. Now, it doesn't always work, and sometimes you end up falling back on one of the later rules. But that's your first goal. First, to do no harm. Same thing applies to you. If you're going to try something new, if you're going to try skydiving for the first time, yeah, maybe working with one of those partner dives first would be a good idea than doing it yourself first. But basically, first, do no harm. I learned that from my father as well, because we would go out and be working on $100,000 machines. Well, you don't want to break one of those for someone when they're trying to fix it. This would be the almost epitome of a bad thing. Yes, indeed. Number 2, look for the obvious. I have a kind of a corollary to this, and it's almost a joke, but the problem typically resides in one button or one part. And I have a great story from my time in college. You know that when you go to school, when you go to a library, there's a security system, right? That usually rings even though you've already checked out the books. But there's a security system so you can't take books out of the library. My library, my college library where I worked, was switching from one system to another, one security system to another. And they had this little device that would lay on a book and it would tell you if it was charged or discharged, right? Well, they were bringing this whole new system, they were starting to retrofit books. I worked in circulation in college. Basically, I was a guy running around with a little cart, reshelving all the books that everybody else was taking out. I was walking by the office of the, I guess the director of the library. It wasn't even the head librarian, it was like the boss of the whole organization. And she is just like, I can't understand it. They said this thing was going to do this and for us and this for us, and we can't figure this out. And whatever reason, my troubleshooting genes kicked in early, maybe it's from my upbringing. I kind of went totally inappropriately, I realize, now, but I stuck and said, what seems to be the problem? Well, they told us that this device is this is a new device, it's going to charge all the new books, but it's supposed to discharge all the old books, so it turns off the old system and then turns on the new system. I said, well, show me what you do with this device. We put it to discharge, and we put the book in, and it goes thump, because it has a little electric eye. It goes thump, and it's supposed to, and you lay the device on it, and it says if it's charged, it's charged. So I look at it for 30 seconds, and applied my rule. It's typically one switch, right? I take the switch and I flip it from discharge to charge. Thump the book. Dead as a doornail. She's like, no, you are kidding me. No, you could not. I don't. Grab another book off the shelf. Thump. Dead as a doornail. The fact was, the new system worked opposite of the old system. But no one had ever thought, all these people, I was 22 years old, right? Well, I was 18 years old, what am I saying? 18 years old, all these older people, all these other knowledgeable library people, no one had thought to try it the other way. Look for the obvious, because about 90% of the time, it's something pretty obvious. My wife is if not a technophobe, she certainly doesn't delve into technology nearly as much as I do. For some reason, I instilled this message into her. She was a teacher, high school teacher, when we first moved here to LA. She called me up one afternoon and said, "Oh, I gotta tell you the story. This is so great." She felt so pumped about this. She had walked into the office, you know, the old Ditto Master, so you need to type up the Ditto Master, run it through the mimeograph machine. The whole school, the whole faculty was at a standstill because the typewriter wouldn't work. And she said, I don't know why, but I looked inside. And when I looked inside, there was a belt kind of sitting there. And I looked and there was a little pulley and I put it back on the pulley and it worked. Everyone thought she was this technological god. All she did was look for the obvious. As you can imagine, this applies to life too. Corollary to this one, never ascribe to malice what can be more easily ascribed to stupidity. Okay? Yes, sir?
I have an observation about your first example. I don't think that that resides in the field of the obvious, because they've been using a system for 22 years. So that's actually a poor product design. Somebody that made a new system didn't ask these people how they were using it. So it's obvious for you that never used any of those systems. So for you, it was an easier.
It was a naivete. I didn't have any preconceived knowledge about it. I use the term obvious. Yeah, maybe I could use a better term.
That's more like thinking out of the box.
Yeah, what you got? There's another cliche for you right there, right? Yes, that is exactly true, and that we'll go back to, we'll talk about it a little bit. Yes, there is this whole thing about preconceived notions, and you need to let go of your preconceived notions. Now, after years of technology work, I have to sometimes kick myself and say, you know, what am I missing here? It also goes back to the whole concept of common sense. And the fact is, common sense really isn't that common. Sometimes we do not apply simple, plain, theoretically common sense to troubles that we're having. So that can also lead you down the wrong road. And that's actually another rule coming up here, which I have to directly write in, I'll have to remember. Another rule that solves about 99% of the problems with our technology, and perhaps about other things in our lives, is, have you tried turning it off and back on? It's a cliche, I know, it's an IT. If anyone see the IT crowd from the BBC, have you tried, Roy, IT, have you tried turning it off and back on? Slam. The fact is, it works. I have been in situations where someone has called me on the helpline and said, my printer's not working, I can't print anything, and the boss is all upset with me. And I said, well, is there a green light on your printer? And she said, no. I said, okay, is it plugged into a power strip? Hold on. I hear over the phone, thanks. Okay, you gotta check those things, and sometimes just telling people to turn it off and back on, checking the power. Now the same thing can apply to life. I think if you look at the automotive industry right now, and you look at a lot of other industries, there are lots of industries that are in need of a reboot. The best thing we could do would be to turn them off and turn them back on again. Maybe redistribute the resources that they're using up and sucking out of the rest of the world. So that rule, I think, has a much bigger application sometimes, in that there just comes a time when you just need to turn the darn thing off and start over. You mentioned, you brought up another topic that I was thinking of. Now, of course, I can't remember after I said I was going to remember, but I'll come back to it. Let's watch again. When you're troubleshooting anything, the worst situation you can find yourself in is when you have no information. A hanging computer, for example. Where do you start? You know, it doesn't say why it's hanging, it just hangs. It just crashes, it just goes dark. So oftentimes in a problem, once you've gone beyond the obvious, gone beyond checking the power, turning it off and on, and stuff like that, is you have to start poking at it. You have to start, you know, try this, try that. You've got to get it to say something to you. Well, you could also apply that to relationships sometimes. Sometimes you have to pick at the scab. Honey, what's wrong? Honey, what's wrong? Until finally, you get down to what the problem is. Same rule. Basically, you have to get information out of the system. And so you start doing things that you can do. You boot in safe mode if it's in Windows. You boot off another disk. You set up another user. You do whatever you can to get some piece of information out of the system. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there and stare dumbly at it. Which is number 5? Number 5, use the commons. Now, everybody here, I expect, uses the commons multiple times every day. How many people do a Google search? Okay? That's using the commons. The first thing I do when I'm struck with an error message that I have never seen before, okay? And I've been doing this 25 years, and there's, of course, hundreds of thousands of error messages I've never seen before. I go to Google. I take the most salient part of the error, I type it into Google, and I see what comes up. And the fact is, back in the old days when I was working with DOS machines and Apple IIs, you maybe had a BBS you could dial up and maybe talk to 30, 40, 50, 100 other people. With Google, you are getting the combined knowledge of millions of people all over the world. Why wouldn't you use that? But again, common sense related, oftentimes people are like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, have you tried doing a Google search? Oh, no, I hadn't. And the fact is, the more specific the error message, the better the results you get back out of Google, to the point of probably 9 times out of 10, if I do that, I am led directly to the answer for the problem that I'm facing. Now, what happens if you're not? Oftentimes people ignore the relationship of similar problems. And I find this in my own life a lot. I'll be searching on a particular problem, maybe not finding an exact answer to that problem, but I'll start to see other errors which lead to, other problems which lead to the same error message, or maybe lead to a different error message but sound similar. And it'll get me to thinking, oh, well, if that problem causes it to do, oh, that's sort of related, yeah. And then you start riffing off of those similar solutions that you found that aren't the solution to the problem you're working on, but what they are is they're another path to the solution you're searching for. So take in those similar problems. Don't just ignore a Google result that says blah, 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 blah. Well, that doesn't apply to me. Well, look at it. Maybe it does. Maybe it is similar. It might point to the same fact that, oh, it's a USB error. That triggers a USB error. I'm getting this. This is a similar error. I wonder if it's a USB device. And you start unplugging all the USB devices. Try it that way. Same thing applies in your life. Look for similar problems occurring in other industries, other businesses, other careers, other lives, and I can almost guarantee you're going to find similarities. Now your job, there's a million reasons why you would look at something and say, that's not similar to my situation. What you're looking for is the one reason it is. It's also something I apply to when you're starting a new project. There's a million reasons to say no to a project. What you're looking for is the one reason to say yes to the project. Because face it, everybody else out there is going to be telling you all the problems with your project, all the problems with your piece of software, all the problems with your novel. You don't have to worry about that. Other people will take care of the negative input very, very easily. What you're looking for is the one reason to do it, the one solution that gets you along the path we're on. Any questions, any comments, anything? Yes?
I was just going to say that once you have found the reason for the error message, if you didn't find a satisfactory one, by all means blog it so the next person that looks finds your solution.
And if you get both ways. If you create a new solution, definitely blog it. There was a stupid thing on GoDaddy's web hosting. GoDaddy's web, I'm a podcaster. That's something I do regularly, amongst all the other stuff I do. I wanted to host a video file on my GoDaddy website. I wanted to host it as an M4V file. iPod ready, downloadable video, right? MPEG-4, ready for the iPod, right? GoDaddy doesn't have M4V in their MIME types. What's up with that? I wrote them, so what's up with that? So we're going to add it. Sorry, you have to figure it out on your own. They wouldn't even give me an answer. The fact is, I did some research. I figured out there's a way using HTX, and this is for some, for tech. If you're not a techie, this is way too technical. But you put it in your HTXS file, and all of a sudden you can serve out that file type with no problem at all. Well, guess what I did? Immediately wrote it up and put it on my blog. It is one of the most popular blog posts on my entire site because when people put in GoDaddy, MV4, mine type, up I come. Nothing like being the #1 hit in Google for a very specific question like that. Yes, sir?
When you do find that solution that works, comment on the blog, or if it's a tech support site, mark that answer as helpful, because that data knocks it further
Float it up?
and it will help people fast.
What is it? Dig it up, float it up,
Whatever you need.
ping it. There's another term.
Google actually has a thumbs up.
A thumbs up now, yeah, you can actually do that. You're going to find throughout life that sharing information is just as good, if not better, than making new information. Okay? I find that some of the most popular stuff on my blog is just something that I found that helped me that I share with others. I was really amazed one day. I was watching my website, all of a sudden my hits were just going through the roof. I mean, I am not a really popular website, thank God, because otherwise it would go down all the time. All of a sudden I'm watching Google Analytics and it's like doing this. I'm going, okay, what's going on? So I looked at the analytics and what's sending people over here? It turns out I was the #1 hit for California wildfire during the fire season because I had posted a link to the California wildfire viewer. Well, guess what? People found that really useful and really necessary. The fact is they were linking actually to a post from 2003, I think, so I actually reposted a new post with new links and upgraded links and information. So it certainly was worth my time, but sharing back to the commons guarantees that you will also get more information out of the commons, because the more you share, the more other people are likely to share, the more other people are likely to put their information out there. So, great little kind of sidetrack there, but definitely use the commons and contribute to the commons, because it's only going to come back to the end. How many people have ever done a Google search and come across Experts Exchange? How many people would like to find the person responsible for that and wring their necks? Sometimes I will explicitly exclude Experts Exchange from my searching, and I will explain to those who don't know what it is. It's a paid source of technical support. They have the answers, but they won't give them to you unless you pay. And
You get around it.
you get, we'll talk later. See me after the talk. To me, that seems antithetical to the nature of, not just the internet, but the nature of the internet is kind of affecting the nature of the world these days. And it just seems antithetical to me. Even myself, as a tech support person, I would feel very bad locking my stuff up inside a system like that. And the fact is, the people who are locking it up, I bet you they don't get anything out of that. So not only are they not contributing, they're taking money from the people who actually came up with the solution. So just give me the willies, give me the willies. Rule number 6. Sometimes the only way to move forward is to take 2 steps back. This is a real hard one to convince people of. They want to force the question and force it. They think that by continually pushing hard on the question, they'll discover the answer. And the fact is, sometimes you need to step backwards. You need to bring the situation back to some stable level. You need to get the computer to boot, okay? Or you need the computer to not hang so that you can look for other solutions. And I'm using computer analogies because that's where a lot of the tools come from, but again, they apply overall. So I've mentioned safe mode, I've mentioned it. Basically, when I was working with my father as a child, he taught me how to take a lawnmower engine, Briggs & Stratton, what is it, horsepower and a half lawnmower engine in a bushel basket and put it back together and actually have it run. Okay. Couldn't do it now, but back then, oftentimes with that, you would have, even if the machine was assembled, you would often end up starting to disassemble the engine. Because it'd be like, okay, brump, 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 it doesn't really start in point, it feels like it's binding. Okay, well, off comes the lid, off comes the flywheel, off comes the head. You look at the piston, oh, the piston rings are shot, or there's something lying in it, or the piston's broken. You had to go back to find what the root problem is. And once you find that, you solve that, and then you start to move forward. Now, the scariest part is, you go back, you find one problem, you fix it, and you start to move forward again, and something else happens. Well, guess what? You go back to the stability point, figure out what else is wrong, and move forward. Because one of the most scary places to find yourself is when you're not facing one problem, you're facing multiple problems. That is, in my experience, the most difficult thing in the world to troubleshoot. Because sometimes you may have solved the initial problem, but the secondary problem is similar enough or looks like the first problem that you don't know you've solved the first problem. And so you continue fighting and fighting and fighting. So anything you can do to step back to a stable point and move forward slowly will prevent you from banging your head against a wall over what is in reality a multiple level problem. Make sense? Make sense? Comments, questions? Should have plugged this in so it didn't be blanking. There was that one topic that when you were talking about, it jumped into my mind. I'm trying to remember it now.
Was it thinking outside the box?
No, it was the
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. Thank you. Let's turn over there.
Was it usability or like poor product design or
Preconceived notions?
Yeah, it had something to do with preconceived notions, but oh well.
thinking outside the box?
Yeah, which is so funny nowadays because it's such a cliche.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and in fact, sometimes you need to think inside the box because other people are so thinking so far outside the box that they're not looking at the. Then it comes back to the obvious question. See, all these things are related together. It's like it's kind of this little Gordian knot of stuff when you're troubleshooting. So let me look at my list real quick. I wish I could remember that. Basically, those are the rules. We'll review real quick. First, do no harm. Any comments about that? First, do no harm. Everyone agree with that? Disagree? Throw a brickbat, please. Does anyone know what a brickbat is? Anybody? Wikipedia, brickbat. They really exist. Look for the obvious. Have you tried turning it off and on? I actually had the clip from the IT crowd out here with Roy, but I didn't play it. Poke at it until it tells you something. Get it to tell you an error. Get it to, keep asking the wife what's wrong until she tells you what's really wrong, out of sheer frustration, if nothing else. Use the commons. Take 2 steps back when you need to take 2 steps back. And try to understand when you're facing more than one problem layered on top of each other. Because I've used up a fraction of my time. Not sure what that is today. Any other questions? That's pretty much all I have today. Thank you very much. Okay, hold on. Yes, yeah, right, yeah.
I was going to say, related to the last one, eliminate all variables.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just triggered a great thought of mine, which is only change one variable at a time. If you change more than one, maybe that was what it was.
No, you know what? Like I was going to say, you forgot like the other Latin important one, divide et impera.
Which is?
Divide your problem in like basically create a strategy where you have 2 separate systems that you can test one at a time. So if
This
your
divide
problem,
and conquer.
yeah. So if you have like your problem in the left side, then you can forget about the right. That's like slightly like half of the problem, like half of the machine. You can say, okay, that works.
Yep.
So the problem is here, and you keep going.
You narrow the problem down
Exactly.
progressively over time. And changing one variable is very important. Because sometimes even I forget that rule after all these years. I'll change 2 things and I get to the end I'm going, I can't write this up because I don't know which one solved the problem. I just know the problem solved. So be very careful. Anybody watch Mythbusters? They sometimes break this rule, right? You see that, and they always at the end go, oh, we don't know what actually happened because we changed 2 variables at the same time. We changed the weight of the vehicle and the speed of the vehicle. Now we don't know which one affected it more. So definitely, divide and conquer. Only change one variable at a time. Yes?
Don't accept anything at face value until you explore it fully yourself. Because I had to troubleshoot like 3 different problems on a particular friend's computer. And I said, well, she's really having a lot of problems with this one program. I said, well, email their technical support, send them the error message, and then when you get a response, let me know what it is. So I wait a week. What was the response? Oh, they just asked me a simple question. I responded. They never responded back. Well, forward me the email that they sent. Eventually, I got that, and they asked her a very technical question about whether she was a member of the wheel group. And
Oh, that's a great question to ask an end user.
yeah. She said, no, I'm not a member of the wheel group, when in reality, the migration from her previous computer to the new one had accidentally, it was a bug in the migration software that added her to the wheel group. It fixed all 3 problems. If I had listened to her response was, no, they never responded with an good answer, we would still have these 3 issues with her computer.
Corollary to that too is, and it sounds a little scary, never accept what even one of your peers says about a particular, oh, that never works. Oh, that can't be the problem. You know, half the time you go, click, oh, well, that must have been a different situation. You know, you have to often try things on your own and do things on your own. I have a similar issue to that. I got a call, I was working for Walt Disney Imagineering up here in Glendale, and I had one group down at Disneyland. So long I-5 drive. I really didn't want to go down there. I get a call every afternoon around 5 o'clock, the server crashes. Every afternoon. Every afternoon around 5 o'clock, the server crashes. And I'm like, well, I mean, is it getting hot? It was in a bad location. It was exposed. It was dirty. It was a construction trailer type of thing. I said, oh, maybe it's just getting overheated or something. So I get in my car and I go down to Disneyland and I go through security and I get driven around to where I need to be. And I go to the person, show me what you do when you go home at night. Show me what you do around 5 o'clock. And she, well, I turn the monitor off and then I turn my power server on. I go, stop! Sure enough, she was turning off the server every night and that's why it was crashing. Oftentimes, there's a whole nother corollary there. Sometimes you need to see things yourself with your own eyes. I will have clients, sometimes I can help a lot of people over the phone. But there's times when I just have to see what they're doing. Because literally, they can tell you one thing and be doing another, even if they don't quite realize. You're telling them to press the Alt key and they're pressing the Control key. You're telling them to turn the switch, this switch up, and they're turning it down. They're just, language is a very, very difficult thing sometimes, especially if you're not face-to-face with people or watching them do something. So if you have a particularly intractable problem with someone, you know, go out and just say, show me what you do. Show me what it's how they develop GUI human interface design and all that. They turn the camera on and say, go work with that. They don't interfere, they don't help, they use that. Now, frankly, in the case of Microsoft products, I'm not sure that really works. But you often just have to watch the way people do it because they'll have different names for things. They won't know if they're in the wheel group or not. Hell, I wouldn't know if I was in the wheel group or not in most cases. You may be using different terms for the same thing, the same term for different things. That's why do you think they use Latin names for plants? Okay? Because everybody can call a mugwort this plant or that plant or the other. It's only if you use the Latin name and you know I'm talking about that plant, not that plant, even though they have the same common name. Well, click on the close button. Well, your concept of the close button may be different from their concept of the close button. You need to figure that out. That was great though, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
If somebody is interested in the art of troubleshooting, watch House. House is a master troubleshooter. Like he does something that's really, really useful. He thinks that everybody's an idiot and everybody lies. That's most of the time the case. It's an extreme case, but I've just started watching House. I don't like watching shows about mean people. I guess I'm just a Nancy, but I'm just sensitive. But I don't like watching mean people. But lately I've started watching House. And the fact is, yes, it is a horribly extreme model. And one would hope you don't need to be that nasty. But there is a concept to that, as we just said. People don't always tell you everything. And it's usually a sin of omission, not a sin of commission. Not lying to you. They're just leaving stuff out. Well, my keyboard just stopped working. And nothing happened? You didn't there wasn't a power outage? You didn't spill anything into it? No. And you pick the keyboard up and it's drip, drip, drip. And it's like, how do you gently tell someone that you basically figured out that they lied to you? Well, I'll go get a new keyboard and you swap it out and you move on. They know. You don't really have to say anything to them because they know they've been busted. Somehow a glass of water got into this keyboard. Yeah, I don't know how. A bird flew by with a glass of water in his hands and dropped it into my... I'm the first one to admit I have spilled stuff in my keyboard. And honestly,
the best thing you can do is just admit it up front and say, I did this, I need a new keyboard, please. Because you're going to send your tech person on this round robin, and when in reality, if the minute they pick it up, they're going to go, ooh, look, none of the keys go down. Because it was sugary soda, it was a Coke, you know, instead of a Diet Coke or something. It's like, oh, you can tell. So, again, yes, that is a perfect example. House is a wonderful example. Just don't be so mean to people. Just understand that they sometimes don't tell you everything. Anything else?
Sure.
Yes, Steve.
The first point was do no harm, but at the same time you have to not be afraid of doing harm so that you don't poke at it. I mean, you have to
intelligently, the crossword is you have to intelligently do it. You have to know what you're doing. Often what I'll do is, you'll see me when I'm working on a computer, if I need to change network settings, I make sure I write down the old network settings, because I may need to go back to them, you know, especially for static or something like that. So that's what you do. You always give yourself a restore point, a rewind point, where I can at least get it working as poorly as it was. Now, as you know, that doesn't always save you. And I actually think I skipped one. The last one is cut your losses. There comes a time when the time you're spending on solving the particular problem becomes more than it would cost to simply reinstall Windows. That's my typical problem that I face with a client. It's got so infected with viruses and spyware that it's actually faster to rebuild the machine than it is to try and spend hours and hours removing every little gobbledygook piece that got in there. And I hate that situation, but I also have to realize that it's true. I hate it because I'm basically turning to my client and saying, I just cost you $300 because I'm going to charge you 3 hours to rebuild this computer. I'm going to take it home with me and set it on my bench because it actually takes 8, but I'm only going to charge you 3 because I'm a nice guy. But my wife, whenever I complain about my job, my wife always says, well, it's not coal mining. Well, so that's my version of coal mining. That is me down in the mines with the oil lamp, not even with the modern tools, with the oil lamp and the pickaxe. It's reinstalling, rebuilding Windows. Back up all their data, wipe the drive, reinstall Windows, find their driver disk. How many people have trouble? Where's your driver disk? What? Yeah, that disk that came with your computer. There was a disk that came with my computer. So, you know, you run into this. So there are times, though, when you just need to cut your losses and say, it's going to take me less time to rebuild this than it will be to try and remove every little flaw, every little glitch. And you do need to recognize that. And know when you get that point, because otherwise you can really go down the rabbit hole. And you wake up and it's like 10 hours later and you're like, oh, I guess I should have just bit the bullet and done that. And so know your threshold, do that, let that time elapse. Anything else? I want to thank you so much. This is the first time I've given this talk, and you guys have been very helpful in reminding me of some of the stuff I wanted to say. Hopefully you will use troubleshooting skills, these rules in your own life, like I have found them to be useful in mine. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of bar camp. And dinner's coming soon. And we have an acoustic music jam that I'm hosting tonight. Even if you didn't bring an instrument, please come by, sing a couple songs. There is one more session after this, then dinner, and then our evening festivities. Thanks again, everybody.
You rock. Thanks. You rock.